Hi, and welcome everyone to Misk Majlis. Today we will be talking about a very important topic that relates to all of us. Considering the increased demand of work and the striving of youth to succeed in life, it became hard to create that balance between your professional career and your personal life. So today with our panelists, we're going to talk more about it and we're going to discuss it together. My name is Razan El Yamani from MISC Foundation, and I would like to take the chance to introduce our panelists. So we will have Andrea Stine. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name. Veronica Linardi. Gaston Erjonji. I'm sorry if I'm killing the name. And also Mr. Fan Hongard. How about we take a minute to introduce and give us an overview about yourself? Do you want to start?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. Great pleasure. My name is Fan Hongyi. I'm a global shaper from China. I'm here with the Global Shaper delegation. But professionally, I'm an education startup founder based out of China, trying to bridge the gap of information and cultural understanding. So we work on curriculums and programs with organizations like UNDP to really develop globally competent talent in China. And so in the future, they can be the much needed bridges between China and other cultures. So yeah, it's a great pleasure meeting everyone. Looking forward to our conversations.
Thank you so much.
First of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here again. It's really my honor. So I'm Veronica Linardi. I'm from Indonesia. I'm a young global leader, and I'm also the CEO of my single family office. So we do investments in alternative investments, mainly in sustainability in high growth emerging markets. Through our single family office, we are also building one of the leading and profitable tech-enabled ecosystems in supply chain management, logistics, commerce infrastructure, and electronic vehicle. So I'm also the co-founder of one of the largest human capital development companies in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, good morning. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Gaston. I'm originally from Argentina, although I've been living in different places around the world. I'm a tech entrepreneur. I've worked my entire life in technology, had the opportunity to be one of the first 5 employees for Google in Spanish-speaking Latin America, and started in the startup journey over 10 years ago. Been involved in several companies, was able to go through 2 acquisition processes. Previously built a neobank, and now I'm building a fintech infrastructure company for Latin America. We are over 320 people across 6 markets. I'm here with technology pioneers, and I'm also an endeavor entrepreneur.
Thank you so much.
All right. Andreas, also also a technology pioneer, but my first startup, not my third. 26-year-old computer science engineer from Belgium. We work for very large enterprises like British Petroleum, HSBC, Ericsson, Allianz, mainly European companies right now. And we help them move from jobs to skills as a framework of looking at talent and looking at work. Because skills are more granular, so you can dig deeper, because even though 2 people might have the same job title, they are never the same, because they have like different backgrounds, different skills. So we try to visualize that for these companies.
Thank you so much. Actually, I would like to start with you. Thank you for giving your overview about your professional life and your work. Would you please tell us more about what drives you outside of your work?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. For me, many things are about energy, and like energy without judgment. So sometimes I have weeks when I feel like working 70 hours. Like there's something that needs to be done, or there's something very interesting. So like there's like a natural flow, and you don't really think too much about what you're doing. Other times of the year, for me it's sports, where for example I cycle a lot. I still play basketball. So I have a game on Saturday that I need to get home for. So outside of work, it's mainly sports, but like the intensity really varies on like my own energy, and whether I need half a break from the job, or whether I'm fully focused. But I don't feel bad in either scenario. So.
That's great. And is it something that you try to maintain or do constantly?
Well, it's all linked to the energy. So um, uh, when I don't work out or when I don't go cycling for a couple of days, weeks, I start like feeling annoyed. It's like the
Yeah.
sports equivalent of getting hangry.
Yeah.
So I just need it. It's like a necessary ingredient. So I can't go without it because my productivity just dips.
So that's great. So you create it as a habit in your life, which is great, and I think it's very healthy for even for the long term. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. Gaston, I have a question for you. So, what is your rule of thumb when it comes to work-life balance?
Right. So I think over the years I've sort of evolved from balance to more of integration. I think the dynamics of my life, require a lot more of integration. So, all the way from like, 7 a.m. in the morning through like midnight, I'm awake and I'm trying to balance things out. My schedule sometimes requires that I'm working at 7 a.m. or literally at 12 p.m. at night, managing people across 6 markets and maybe talking to venture capital in multiple time zones, or taking customer calls, or just trying to, bring my daughters to school, or, go play something with them. So, I have to sort of build my weekly schedule in such a way that I'm sort of balancing all things out and integrating them in a rather sort of intelligent and efficient way. So, yeah, I mean, these days I've as a tech entrepreneur, you always work very hard, but probably kind of similar to what Andreas mentioned with sport, also, go practice a lot of sport, but, I try to find ways to channel, the energy and to remove some of the daily or weekly stress out of my, out of my mind, and I find those little buckets, whether it's spending time with, with my daughters, or doing some sport or something, to better integrate and to keep, momentum. So yeah, I think, to your question, what's a rule of thumb? I think it's finding a way to be efficient in the long run and to be consistent. I think it's about energy management for the long run. It's almost like when you see all these athletes that keep going for 20 years, like Federer or Nadal or Messi or whoever that may be. It's like, they keep going for 20 years and you don't understand how, and I think that's down to consistency and to finding the right balances, both physically and mentally.
Great. You mentioned about organizing your schedule. So, do you actually have like an agenda that you create weekly or maybe daily? And to which depth do you actually plan your schedule?
Yeah, no, definitely have an agenda. It's planned way ahead of time.
Oh, wow.
I already know some trips I have to do, like in Q3 and Q4 this year.
Wow.
Or even some, more personal, activities that I have. So yeah, I pretty much live, to my calendar, and which is, is good because it gives you sort of discipline and visibility of what you have to do, but also sometimes, you're just running and, clicking in and out of different Zoom meetings, from 1 minute to the other. So I don't know, it has goods and bads, but definitely have a, pretty well organized calendar, and it helps sort of manage my life. But listen, I have, I take no shame in, literally putting like a block at 10 a.m. in the morning if there's something important that I have to do. And I think it's also a message for the rest of the company. If they go in and see my public calendar and see that I'm at school doing some sort of activity with my 4-year-old daughter, I think that's, an important message to pass on. And you're also helping people to, follow that sort of example, and that's okay. And, yeah.
I agree. I think this is very important as a leader. As you mentioned, you're spreading or creating that healthy environment, so your employee can be consistent in terms of their performance. And as a father as well, I'm pretty sure it becomes harder. Thank you so much for sharing. Veronica, I have a question for you. I mean, money and financial stability is something that we constantly think about, and it's a necessity for sure. So, in your opinion, how can you balance between choosing your passion and between financial stability?
Ideally, of course, we get both of both worlds, right?
We
The
wish.
best.
We
Yes.
want that. Yeah.
I like to follow the concept of the Japanese ikigai. So basically, what you love doing, what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you get paid. And oftentimes, you need to put in a lot of hours to discover what you're good at. And over the time, and if you put in the 10,000 hours, you become what you're good at, and the world recognizes it, and you get financial stability. So I guess it's an input and output. It's an energy exchange between both of like what you enjoy doing and what gets you paid. So the way I feel it, if you spend a lot of time doing it and you really enjoy it, but you don't get paid yet, that means it's still a hobby. You have to find some way to commercialize it. And if not, then maybe it's not relevant to people. If it's relevant to people, they would want to pay an exchange of energy or money because it resonates with them and they need it. So until then, if it's still a hobby, you should find something else to, put money in the bank so that you will not be a burden to anyone. But I do believe that passion is very important for us to actually have a meaning in life. If we go about every day just a mundane, monotonous work, then we feel that life is very blah.
Yeah.
So until we find our passion, it's important to just keep on going, make sure that we're financially independent, and keep our passion just burning.
That's very good advice. Also, considering the pressure that youth are facing, especially in their early life, of making money, maybe also to start a family. So you need that financial stability where you come to a position where it's hard to pick between your passion and or finding that stability. Do you think it's healthy for the person to give himself or herself the time to explore that passion and go into an experience of trial and error? Because as you mentioned, like you start with your hobby and it might work, it might not. It might give you that money, the income that you're looking for or not. So how far do you think the person should go in terms of exploration?
Definitely. I think it's very important for us to give our best, our 110% to anything that we do. If not, when we look back, then we will regret. And that is something that we do not want, right? Having said that, it's also important to be realistic. Do you give yourself 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? In the meantime, there's opportunity cost. You see your peers who have discovered their passion and are maybe heading some big projects in a corporate world. Or they found their passion and making a big difference in the world, cleaning the air or cleaning the pollution, and you're envious of them because they've already discovered their passion and are recognized for their work. I don't know how much money they have in the bank, but those two things are very important for us as human beings, right? We're not talking about the wealth that we accumulate, but it's the impact that we create and being recognized at what we do and having enough money in the bank for us to live comfortably so that even when we spend that 10 hours, 20 hours doing what we love, it's not going to be a burden to the ones that we love, right? We can keep on going. So going back to the question whereby do we need to actually put a timeline, I think it really depends on each individual person's situation, right? Do they actually have financial backup to keep them going? Because it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Life and finding our passion and being good at our career or our whatever hobbies, it's supposed to be a lifetime commitment to ourselves, to invest in ourselves so that we continuously improve. And if you just put in 20 hours in a day to do what you love, it's not going to be sustainable. Your health will break down very shortly, very quickly. So that's not sustainable. And the second thing is to always involve your community, your peers, your network. If you just run your own show, you know that you're not building a bigger impact and community as you can. So involve your friends, involve your network, get mentors who can give you good advice so that you can achieve your destination much faster. In that way, you won't have to spend 5 years. You can just, get the cliff notes of doing things, discovering where your mistakes are, quickly learning from your mistakes, and achieving your destination much faster.
That's great. And you mentioned a very good point is that it varies from a person to another. So understanding what you want, to which level of financial stability you want to reach to. For some people, it is their main focus or their main objective where they want to reach to a high financial level to have a certain life or a certain level that they want. But other people, it's just a necessity to fulfill main requirements in life. So I think it varies from a person to another.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So my next question would be, have you witnessed any differences between older and younger generations in terms of aligning personal boundaries with
Right.
professional commitment?
Right. Before going to that question, I just want to say I really love the wisdom coming from Veronica on the ikigai and stuff, because I can really resonate with that. And regarding finding the balance of financial sustainability and pursuing your passion, I think it's really important to balancing. It's all balance. There's no static balance right in the middle. It's something you need to manage balancing, find that point you can keep both sides going. So a little bit of my personal experience. Now I'm in education, but I used to work for venture capital firms in Beijing. I used to be with Tsinghua University on their incubator arm, working with startups. Very exciting space. But on the side, I'm a content creator for educational content. So I don't think it's a zero-sum game, right? You have to all in on your professional work, but you can find synergy between your passion, between your side hustles, and to your, let's say, full-time job at any companies. So as time goes, you will find, oh, the synergy is so great. I'm confident in building my own startup. So here I am with my own educational startup with a great community of support, mentors, and stuff. So I think it's important just to keep the vision, long-term vision in your mind, pursuing your passion, at the same time, sustain your financial sustainability, of course. And then going back to your question, the difference between the older generation and younger generation, perhaps it's better for me to chip in my perspectives in China. So you guys might heard about quiet quitting in the States. Here in China, we have lying flat on the ground, like I just don't want to work, I just want to lie flat and rest. So we see the similar trends in China, especially post-COVID. We're not really out of COVID yet back home in China, but the thing is that the young people, young workforce, are searching for meaning in work. That's very significantly different from our older generation. China has come a long way since the opening up. We see tremendous economic growth in the past 4 decades, basically. But the older generation, their mindset was still back then when they were poor. So they tend to follow the routine. But that's the reason why Chinese people have the name for very good work ethics, right? They follow the regulations, are willing to overwork, et cetera, et cetera. But the younger generation is a different story. They want to find meaning. They want to have a good culture. They want to make friends in the workplace, which is not usually the case for my parents. So I think that's something we see the similarity between the East and West. But I say in China, it might be different is that we still have the family pressure. I say it's so much bigger because we are a very collective society. We are family-oriented. It's different from the US, more about individualism, right? All about the freedom, do what you want, you can be whoever you want to be. But in China, it's more about, yeah, my mom wanted me to be a doctor. My mom wanted me to have a, we call iron bowl, 铁饭碗, meaning you always have this state-owned enterprise job that can provide you the pension, provide you the welfare, etc. So Chinese people, young people are not very, very entrepreneurial, but I think COVID is a catalyst for young people to think again, to think outside of the box. Speaking of thinking again, I met the author of Think Again, this book, Adam Grant, who is a behavior psychologist based from States. So I really like his thinking in really develop critical thinking in our younger generation. So that's a part of my job to really help the younger generation to be more entrepreneurial, more critical, and basically be more creative.
Thank you so much. Can you share with us an advice in terms of how you can force the boundary? So if this young gentleman is being led by someone from an older generation with different mentality, different way of working. How can this person enforce the boundaries between professional and personal life?
Right. Regarding the boundary between basically work-life balance, I'd say the boundary is blurred. Like what I'm saying, it's not about work-life balance. It's not a noun. It's a verb. It's a balance as a verb, balancing. Because there's so much uncertainty these days, given COVID and all the economic uncertainty and stuff. So it's important as a young people, to maneuver in a very complex situations, trying to understand the big environment, also in your more personal family scenarios. So in that way, you can find kind of a maneuver and find that boundary, a blurred boundary, I'd say, between professional work and a personal life. Yeah, and again, it's not a zero-sum game. You can always find synergy. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So my next question would be for Gaston. What is your relationship to work, and is it an important part of how you define yourself? As we mentioned, it's a blurry line sometimes, and it's hard to put that separation. So can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, it is important. I think when I was a little bit younger, there were times where it was probably too important, and I think I've sort of learned to balance things out a little bit, which doesn't necessarily mean working less, but it's working with a different intensity and managing better, and all the things that we were discussing before. I do find a lot of meaning in work, but when you are an entrepreneur and you have decided to be an entrepreneur, and that has a massive opportunity cost, then I think if there's a point where you don't even think about it as work. It's just part of your life, and it's part of what you do. And the more you integrate with many other things, you're not thinking of it as work, right? So it's as important as all the other choices that you're making, and it's also about the choices that you decide. Choices are, on what you want to do and also what you don't want to do. And these days, I find myself saying no to lots of things. And there's essentially only like 3 or 4 things that I'm doing and investing all of my time. Work being one of those. But it has always been a big driver for me, and I think that's related to the fact that I've always decided to do things that I enjoyed and I felt passionate about. And there was a time where I no longer felt that I was maximizing my potential working at a corporation, even though it was like a massive experience and one of the best companies in the world. And that's when I decided to move on. And then as Veronica was saying, even when you are starting something or putting your time in a specific company, you need to be very realistic in terms of whether things are going well or not, if you have found that sort of ceiling or roof, or if you have still a long way to go. And I think trying to be as objective as possible about the real potential of what you're doing is very, very important. And that sort of assessment and reassessment is critical, and something that we need to learn from, because it also, at the end of the day, informs your choices.
I like how you mentioned that working smart instead of working hard, which I think is very important. So, it's the same ultimate result, but it's how you get to it. Thank you so much for sharing. So considering that it's very hard to do that separation between personal or challenging between personal and professional, so can you tell us, how can we find our purpose? How can we make sure that we're working in a career where it's impactful and meets our personal expectation? How can we find that?
Yeah, I think purpose is very closely tied to happiness. And to give an example, my girlfriend just started working as a tax lawyer. And when you start working as a lawyer, you just get the cases that the other people don't want to do. But she worked very hard for 5 years to get that degree, and now she represents the government in court in tax cases, and sometimes she feels like she's on the side of the bad guys. And when as a lawyer you feel like, hey, we shouldn't be winning this case, but you still have to make an argument. You come home unhappy, completely depleted of energy. I think those kind of moments and allowing yourself to then dig into yourself and like the journey inward, like why do I feel like this? Would something else have made me happier? Like would I have rather been the other person? Like that kind of soul searching, I think over time leads you to purpose. But for me, happiness is always the guide. And it's also the guide that I used myself, like in building the company, in like why did I pick computer science engineering? I just love spending time programming. I thought it was the most fun thing to do, like out of all the subjects that I looked at. It made me the happiest. It was the easiest for me to invest a lot of energy in. And when it's easy to invest energy in things, you exponentially grow better at it, as opposed to something where you have to invest energy, where it's a drain. So for me, like again, purpose is strongly linked to happiness and energy, and like the purpose of life, I think, is to be happy.
That's a very good purpose, and I would definitely encourage everyone to find happiness for sure. So, Veronica, what advice would you give young people who are entering the job market today with the hope to find purpose or happiness, let's say?
Be open to exploring.
That's a good advice.
So if you know what you want, go for it. If you don't, you still need to put in the hours to discover what your strengths are and your weaknesses. And don't be afraid to fail, to make mistakes. But it's very important for you to actually learn from your mistakes. Otherwise, you will never become a success in whatever you choose to do. Going into the workforce, we also, as mentioned, have to have an open mind to be able to learn from our peers, from our team members, from our supervisors, to take constructive criticism. Do not take things personally, but remember that everyone in a company has a role to fulfill, and that sometimes you would bump into each other accidentally or intentionally, but it happens for a reason. If you know the reason, good, understand, and do not take any sides, do not be angry. But if not, then you must also understand that the other person is also doing his job and has a deliverable to meet. So be wary that do not take things personally and just move along the road where you intend to be. So be open to learning, don't be afraid to make mistakes, keep on going, keep on swimming until you achieve your goal. And also be humble to learn from everyone.
Enjoy the journey.
Yes,
Enjoy the journey.
exactly,
That's
that's
a
very
very good advice. Would you please share your thoughts on how we can define purpose and what advice you would give to young professionals?
Sure. I mean, young graduates entering the job market. Job market right now is over competitive. I think it's mostly the case in many countries, right? So I'd say you don't know your career trajectory like right away. So be open-minded, be curious, to just have trials and errors. So you'll find out your path, your passion along the way. So don't be anxious about, oh, I don't have the higher calling. I don't know what I'll do. In 10 years, it's all right. Take some time, right? Take a break even. We have a gap year in college. You can also take a career break, because that's what I did 2 years ago during COVID. It was great, really. So I'd say, take it slow, right? Take your time to really find your passion. And another thing I would add is that we've been talking about purpose-driven, finding the purpose, the mission, but from another perspective of the employers, the companies, we should be careful to not exploit the young people, the employees, in the name of there's a purpose in our work culture. And we are not supposed to impose our work culture on individuals and to ask them to, or you should come over on a Sunday morning to work overtime without compensation, which is illegal, I'd say, which is not right. So there's some argument and controversy around this kind of work culture, especially in China. So this meeting, uprising startups, say back then, say ByteDance, now it's very big, Tencent, Alibaba, etc., etc. They were imposing or implementing this kind of work culture. Now we call it 996, meaning work from 9 o'clock to 9 o'clock p.m. and 6 days a week, which can be exhausting. But they really push people. And not only push people, like it's not like it's something you have to do, but they create this kind of environment. You have the peer pressure in the working environment, so everybody would stay because the boss is there, your colleagues in the office.
Yeah.
But right now, we are in this trend of remote working, right? Now the companies want to hire globally, and the employees are able to work from everywhere. So if there's a trend, I think from the employer's perspectives, I think you should have an open-minded, more inclusive of different personal purposes to include it in your umbrella value in the company. I think that's the purpose we kind of need to keep searching, because you need to really understand the individual purposes, individual talent, individual needs to create that collective identity as a whole. If I may just add on that, we are from the Global Shapers community here in Davos. We are really privileged to be here as young people, voicing out on this global stage. We are 50 people here in Davos, but we actually have more than 15,000 young people around the world in more than 500 city hubs. So that's exactly what we've been doing. Not only top-down, we have the charter, we have some guidelines, but also bottom-up. On the local level, like my city in Chengdu, western part of China, we have so much say in our local level because we understand our own needs in our community. So we can find that right balance from top down and top, bottom up. So that's the beauty of really team working in a global remote working future. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. So definitely do not feel pressured with all what's happening. And I understand, especially like in China, I think it's very competitive.
Right.
And you need to be very active. You need to work hard to reach your ultimate goals. Thank you so much for sharing. So I have a question actually for all our panelists. I mean, we're all striving for success. Everyone is working really hard from 9 to 9, 6 days a week. But actually, I mean, how can we define success? What's success? So can we start with you, Andrea?
Yeah, and I like the question, and I also want to build a little bit on what Troy said. I think, and I won't speak for my generation. I'll just speak for myself. And for a couple of people on my team, I think as a 26-year-old and the young people in our team, what is very important for them is clarity on expected outcome, and then giving them like the freedom to achieve that goal in the way that they want to. And when you think of, for example, investment banking in the 90s, the measure was like how many hours do you spend in the office behind your desk, and you can't go home before 11 p.m. So it's like an input-based validation model. Sometimes people in our team are in the office on Sunday morning because, we committed on something that wasn't finished. Other weeks, we're having drinks at the bar at 4 p.m. on a Friday because we delivered on everything. And so the flexibility, I think, is something. And that one ties into that definition of success. Like if an employer and an employee agree on what we want to achieve by when and what it looks like, I think it gives a lot of autonomy to then the employee to define the path there too. And for me, that is like that definition of success, and that is success in the workplace, and it's something that the people in our team really appreciate, is that we shouldn't care about like how we get to what success is, and instead focus on like what is that definition of success in the workplace, and then frankly just let everybody find their own path.
Yeah, and actually giving that space to your employees, give them the room to let go with their creativity and give them the sense of ownership. So I really agree with you, and it's something that I see also in my career.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing. Yes,
Because
go
I think
ahead.
if people don't have that, if they don't have like an output-based validation model, they will default into an input-based validation model. So people who are not comfortable with am I doing well, they will like default into, okay, then I'll just be at the office until 9 because like, they won't be able to say that I'm
Stand
lazy.
by.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for sharing. Gaston?
Well, I mean, I think success is down to your own definition of success. I don't think there's, a standard or, anything, a mandate or anything that's written that we all need to chase or pursue. So I think it's down to everyone to define what success is, and I think, the way I think about it is I try to sort of break it down in different areas of sort of, work and life, and try to have, a goal or a definition of success in every one of those areas. So for instance, at work, I think success, for me right now would be to be able to build a transformational company that really changes the way in which, financial services are delivered and consumed in emerging markets. And if we can be like a new normal or new default sort of option or infrastructure on top of which an entire industry is built in some regions and continents, well, that would be obviously a massive success. And then there's like milestones along the way, right? Yesterday we were at a sort of all hands meeting within the company, and someone asked, are we going to, do we aspire to make an IPO at some point? And yeah, I mean, to me, it would be like a massive professional goal, and I envision that, and I try to picture myself and some of my colleagues there, and it would be great, and that would be part of the definition of success. But it's only, if we ever happen to have that opportunity, it will be like one more step in that sort of journey. Then moving on to like other realms of life, for instance, I think it'd be success if I can stay healthy, for many years. And so on that note, I try to achieve smaller goals in that direction. So for instance, last year I said, okay, I'm gonna try to run 100 kilometers, a 100-kilometer trail race
Wow.
in Patagonia, which is set up a little bit like the Swiss Alps. And so I trained for 6 months, and I went and ran 100 kilometers, and never done it before, but it was a great experience.
That's great.
Yeah, it made me sort of very happy from that perspective. But it also allowed for more success in the work sort of bucket, because
Yeah.
I was had to force myself out of work to go train. There were Sunday nights at 10 p.m. where I had to go and run 21K or 25K as part of the training program, and it was tough, but it was fulfilling and rewarding. And so, and then from an entrepreneurial perspective, what I'm finding more and more as success is being able to inspire other people in the community. And it's amazing how sometimes I open my LinkedIn and I have random messages from people saying, hey, I wanted to tell you that I started a company, and we just raised a round, and I was inspired by a podcast that I heard 2 years ago or something. And those little things, you come here, invest like an hour, speak what you think, and then there's someone else on the other side that is feeling inspired, and maybe that had a transformational impact in that person. And that sort of multiplying effect, it's also success, and probably, even bigger than whatever I can achieve at a more personal level at work. So, yeah, that'd be my point of view.
I like how you looked at it from a context outside of professional, where you talked about health and your competition that you participated in. So sometimes people, whenever they hear the word of success, they immediately connect it to career and professional life. So thank you so much for sharing. Veronica?
So before I answer that question, so the mindset that I have is think ahead, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. How do I want to be viewed and remembered what kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? From my family, from my peers, from my team members, from my children, how do I want them to know me as? You know, considering that we spend so much time at work, how much time do we have for our loved ones, right? So that is at the top priority on my mind. Number 2, define your priorities. That's also important. Work is important, finding your passion and feeling alive is very important. But like what Gaston said, health, it's something that is indispensable. Not just living healthily, but pain-free, right? So what are the steps to get there? Because we're not talking about longevity, but we want to live healthy and be able to enjoy our life, right? So success to me is being able to feel peaceful, smile all day long, appreciate even though there are challenges in life, appreciate that we're here, enjoying the snow, meeting other people, having this conversation, this opening of our mindset and sharing of energy, being grateful and being able to sleep at night. That is for me success. But of course everyone is different, and there are times when we have our short-term goals to achieve. And of course, that inspires us to actually run the sprints in our life. But be mindful that living a good life, is actually running a successful marathon.
Thank you so much for sharing your advice. That's a very good advice. And I really want to stress on the point that there isn't one definition of success. It's just what makes you happy and comfortable, I guess.
Yeah, I do agree with all the panelists on this. It's very personal, right? The one person should be able to identify their own personal success, but it's really hard. And I'd say the requisite of being able to identify your own success would be keeping an open mind, be well informed. If I may share a little bit about my educational platform, my startup is called Curiosity. So it's a combination of the ancient Chinese wisdom of Taoism. So Tao is all about the effortless doing, the power of now, 100% focus of what you have right now. So we want to find the Tao out of curiosity, because if you are curious enough, you are open to new things. You are basically pushing the boundary of knowledge, because you don't know what you don't know. There are things you know, I know. There are things I know I don't know. There are things I think I know, but I actually don't. And there are things I don't know its very existence. So how we can push our boundary, right? It's to keep an open mind, willing to listen, so we can understand the stuff like beyond our, our personal circle, personal world. So if we are able to do this, to have the curiosity, sincere curiosity, we are able to really be informed, to engage in that way, what's out there, so you can find your personal mission out of all this chaotic information and stuff. So I think it's really, again, very personal, but I think it's important to be curious and have the tools and the mindset. One of the important mindsets, I'd say, is growth mindset. Because we're from different backgrounds, we have different genes, different cultures, we have different baseline. But as long as we are growing every day, right, I think it's already achievements for everybody. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I would like to open the floor for questions. I think we can take one question if there is any.
Thank you. How do you feel in your first moderation?
Good job.
Well, it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. We had great speakers. And thank you for bringing up this point. Thank you so much.
What a great supporter.
Yeah, great supporter, no doubt. Thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure talking to you. And thank you for our audience for being here at 8 a.m. I know it was a challenge. And I hope you find your purpose and find your happiness. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.